My guest in the Nimataion today is Jack Grayle, author of the fantastic grimoire, the Hecataion, and teacher at the Blackthorn School about esoteric, many esoteric things, the PGM. And it's great to have you here, Jack. It's an honor.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be asked, Bernard. Thank you so much for making time for me.
We both love stories, I assume. And let me ask you, what has been your favorite childhood story?
You know what? When I was a kid, there was a book by Barbara Byfield. It was a picture book, and it was called The Haunted Spy. And it's actually very hard to find nowadays and quite expensive. But it's a wonderful book. It's very short, but it's about a British spy who decides to retire. And so he purchases an old castle in the country that's in a lake. And as soon as he moves there, he begins to notice all kinds of mysterious phenomena. And soon he discovers that in the basement, there's an underground passage which leads under the lake to an island in the lake. And in the island, there's a crypt. And in the crypt, there's a coffin. And in the coffin, there's the body of an ancient knight. And the noise has been made by the ghost of the ancient knight, who was a spy in his time, hundreds of years ago. And so the ghost of the dead spy has been lonely and frustrated. And so he's contacted the living spy to have some sort of a human to interact with and resolve some of his issues. And, the book is probably intended for people 8, 9 years old. But it was, first of all, it's really charmingly drawn and has a wonderful story. But it really made an impression to me because it was the first story I read where a ghost wasn't something just scary and evil. The ghost was a being that had feelings too, and unmet needs and desires that only the living could provide, and to show a living person forming a reciprocal relationship with the ghost, and the two of them living in comfort and sort of a synergistic way. And it was a wonderful story. And it also made an impression on me so that much later in life, when I began to encounter different modes of ghost magic, which is what much of is found in Egyptian magic and Greco-Egyptian magic tradition, or for instance, the magic of Thailand, or
Yes.
and in other traditions, there's an element where spirits of the dead are often fuel for the working. In Thailand, the amulets that convey good luck or power or attraction may have, the materia of someone who died violently and young. And in Catholic tradition, you may have a relic with a fragment of a saint's clothing or hair, It's part of the cult of the dead. And certainly in Greco-Egyptian magic, like is found in the PGM, it often says, get the materia of someone who died violently and young, or get the water near a shipwreck, or get the dust of an arena where gladiators fought. And it can be quite mysterious for people who don't understand what's happening. But what's happening is this almost universal idea that the spirits of the dead, if they haven't completely passed on, they still have needs. They may be restless, especially if they died under circumstances that were violent, surprising, or under conditions that were unsatisfying. And that these spirits, they still have agency, but they don't have bodies. And because of that, they're capable of being engaged with in a way that's reciprocal, to say, hey, I need someone to bring me luck or bring them bad luck, or hey, I need a dream or a vision or insight. I need, but I have something to give too. I give you conversation, I give you incense, fruit, flowers, honeyed water. I give you the things that no one's giving you. I give you a purpose. I give you a role. I give you the ability to impact the world of the living so that your story's not over. Your tale is not told. You continue to impact the living world until such time as you move on. And so what I love now is looking back on that story, which works well on its own terms. It actually captures in a really charming way this paradigm, which is so important to much of traditional magic, which is that we're surrounded by spirits, and these spirits are capable of engaging in a reciprocal relationship, and none perhaps more so than the dead, because the dead were once humans. So they understand our needs and the paradigm of the living, and they still, it's believed, yearn for some aspects of that, like attention, gifts, a mission, a purpose, just conversation, to be acknowledged, to be seen. So that one is a very strong contender for one of my favorite books when I was a child.
I mean, that's fantastic. I literally saw the lake, the island, the coffin, and that's what stories do, don't they? They
Yeah.
they convey these images. They open a world up for us to communicate
Yes.
with each other and with them, and in many cases with the dead, because many stories are about people that lived once. So in this sense, couldn't we say that telling stories is to a large part a sort of necromancy?
Oh, I think it's even more than that. I think it's absolutely necromancy. So much of the time, the dead are speaking to us. The authors are often gone, but we're hearing their words in our ears, and the visions they create live in on our minds, and they impact our hearts. I absolutely think it's a form of magic to create art. And
Yeah.
I think it's no surprise that in English anyway, the word for magic is often art with an E at the end of it. But the word for creating beautiful, realistic, works of imagination is art without an E.
Mm.
And the fact is, which people don't acknowledge often, is the two are not only not discrete, but in the Venn diagram of art and art, there is a great deal of overlap
Yes.
between them. Magic is artistic, and art, creative art, has a magical component to it of transformation and self-creation and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Or as Alan Moore's blatantly put, magic is art.
Yes, well, yeah, he's been
Famously.
explicit about conflating the two, hasn't he? That
Yeah.
writers, well, all writers definitely are demiurges, right? They create their worlds from scratch, and they are creators. So how can that not be?
Yeah.
Especially since in the West, all the paradigm of the magician is someone who's creating reality. They are bringing forth their version of things.
Yeah. Or they are like the puppets of the stories, because or the stories are they may not be the bones or hairs or pry, as they call it in Thai magic, but they are a sort of connection to the dead. And so maybe yeah, stories are talismans or amulets themselves.
Well, you bring up a good point in that the magician can both be the creator of the story and a character in the story himself. If you look at the Stele of Zhu, or the headless rite that's found in the
Yeah.
PGM, the
Yeah.
Greco-Egyptian magical papyri, there, the magician, he comes to the ritual as himself or
Mhm.
herself. And then early on, he identifies and says, I am Moses. So he's
Yes.
taken on the role of the friend of God from the Bible, who himself was a magician, and he had the magical competition with Pharaoh. And then he takes on the role, he says the words, I am the angel of the Pharaoh Asuranofrus, meaning, this conflation of the Abrahamic God and Osiris that is being conjured. So he takes on the role of the Angelos, the
Mm.
spiritual messenger that extends between Moses and the invoked God. And then at the end, he says, I am the headless daemon with the sight in my feet. And he's taking on the role of the spirit he's calling, this over God, who is also an under God, this sort of phonic creator God that's a conflation of several, mysterious powers. So it's wonderful because the magician, it's like a playwright announcing he's going to create a play and then playing all the characters in the play as well as writing it.
Yeah. That's the conflation again. That's so wonderful in English, uh, between to be able to spell a word, and of course a spell is something how to change reality. So
Yes.
Ah, I love how these conversations tend to go from, yeah, that has been my favorite childhood story, to universal
Universal
truths.
principles, right? Yeah, it's true. And it's funny how I think we don't give enough credit to how the works of art, the works of art that moved us in our childhood shape our adulthood. They have the greatest impact. And it's so often true that even adults who are jaded get all misty-eyed when they reread a book that meant a lot to them when they were 7, 8 years old. It 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 reifies that old landscape, because these books, they increase our sense of what's possible. It's like a light shown upon our inner landscape to show you what you have within you, that in your imagination can live, the realms of Narnia or Middle Earth, or, these mysterious haunted houses or graveyards from Neil Gaiman books, or, small towns from Ray Bradbury books, or Earthsea from the Le Guin books,
Yeah.
and all these places. If you encounter them when you're impressionable, they live in your imagination. And it's almost like our inner worlds often overlap and interlink if we both love the same book,
Yeah, yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship we have with stories.
I like that. I like that. Where
And them, and they use us to propagate and to grow. So yeah.
I love that idea. And it's fun to think of different versions of Earthsea or Narnia or Middle Earth living in my mind and your mind and other minds that may have similar features but be different. It's a beautiful thought.
Yeah, yeah, it's a way for stories to experience themselves through the lenses of different persons.
Yeah, quite true. And it's been said before that humans beings not only love stories, it seems to be part of being human, but to a degree we are stories. We have a beginning, middle, and end. We have rising action. We have climactic moments in our life. We have, some of us are already on the denouement of our journey. But either way, there is a story's arc. Now, whether the story causes the human arc or whether the human arc causes the story's arc, hard to tell. Like you say, symbiotic, right?
Chicken or egg. And in this
And
egg,
of
there
course,
may be something where we go, and there's another thing.
well, right. And of course, we're all like making a story of our own life through our choices or how we react to what happens to us, So some of us choose to inject more drama into our life than others, but it's kind of ironic that usually the more uncomfortable your life is, the more enjoyable for others to watch that story.
Yeah,
Whereas the more comfortable it is, sometimes the less
yeah.
less enthralling the tale.
And if we all get back home again and sit around the big campfire, we can tell the stories we lived.
The stories of our lives, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Jack, that has
Oh,
been such a pleasure. And I had this impression like stories that are living in us and through us recognized each other a bit, and maybe they also did with the audience. That would be the idea.
hopefully so. Hopefully so.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm looking
Oh,
forward to talk with you again soon.
sounds wonderful. It was my pleasure talking to you, Bernard. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you. The world is magical.